Well, first off, let me explain some things before I get going with the story. This happened when I was only recently figuring out that I was gay, and I hadn't quite come out to everyone yet. And those who I had come out to, well, it was still kinda awkward. I must have been at least 17, but please don't judge me for the stupidity that follows. Well, it was a weekend during the day, and I was browsing this online dating site. I had never dated anyone before, being a late lesbian bloomer, so I was really excited and curious to eventually find someone great. Keep in mind that I was most certainly not looking for hookups. I message a couple of people who sound nice, and I'm going to log off when this person messages me. They don't have much info on their page and just have one picture, but I decide to humor this person and have a conversation. We hadn't talked long before this person says that we should meet up. She didn't live too far from me, so it wasn't undoable. However, the moment she said that we should meet up, red bells start going off in my head. I've always been a careful person and never one to take risk. However, I have been worrying that I was being too careful and that I might be missing out because I wasn't seizing the moment and just jumping into things feet first. I thought I needed to loosen up a bit and get out of my comfort zone. Anyways, I end up agreeing to meet this person, and the place she arranges to meet at is around a 20-minute drive. Another red bell that goes off is that she tells me to wear a dress or a skirt. I hated dresses and skirts, so I don't actually own any, therefore I just wear shorts. Before I head out, I tell my friend where I'm going. That was the one smart thing I did. I told her the location I was heading, and that if I hadn't texted her again in around 2 hours, then she should take action. I jokingly said that if I hadn't contacted her within the time frame, then I had probably been kidnapped and sold as a sex slave. She wanted to know what I was up to, but I refused to tell her. So I tell my mom that I'm going to the store and I head out to meet this person. The place that she told me to go is in a kinda sketchy neighborhood, but I keep going because I remind myself that I'm too nervous. I arrive at the park she specified, and to my relief there was one other person there. A lady with her child. I keep a close eye on this lady, and find great comfort in her presence. I wait at the park for a while. I had arrived at the specified place, and at the specified time. But where was the girl? I leave around a half an hour later. The lady was probably really confused as to why I was there. I had arrived, stood by a fence for a half an hour, and then left. I make the drive back home and go on my computer to find out what had happened. The person explains that she had arrived there but had been spooked because a car full of creepy guys had drove by. She asked me to return to the place. I say no and she starts to beg me and tries to dirty talk me. I wasn't into it because, as I said, I wasn't into the one-night stand business. The person then states that she had seen me and that I looked cute in my pink shorts. This I found kinda creepy because whoever this was had been spying on me from afar. At that point I just shut down the whole conversation and logged off. It didn't occur to me until quite a while later, but the person probably never arrived at the park because a lady with her child was there. The online profile was probably fake, and that was actually some dude trying to pick up lesbians. Some creepy guy. The dude had probably been waiting in his car for the lady and her child to leave before he made his move. Whether that be mugging me or raping me or both, I don't want to know. It was in a pretty deserted area of the neighborhood, so no one would have heard me if I yelled for help. So now that I'm older and wiser, sometimes I'll think back to this day and send a silent thanks to that random lady who probably saved me from something terrible. Nowadays, I listen to my gut and don't worry about being too timid or too careful. Those kind of things keep you safe. So creepy internet person, let's not meet. Yesterday, while walking around alone at the local Superstore on my way home from work, I spotted this group of 3 younger men. I'm typically the type to keep my head down and just keep walking on, but they were acting loud and carrying on in the store, so it was hard not to stare for a second. Any matter, I moved on and went to the automotive section, and there they were. Grabbed a few cans of pet food, and as I rounded the corner, they were there again. No big deal, I thought, and carried on with my shopping as these things happen all the time. As I stopped into the pharmacy area, they were there again. I made eye contact and smiled at one of them, as I wasn't uncomfortable at this time. He did not smile back and gave me a very cold stare. It was strange, but I was thinking, well, maybe that person had a bad day. Shrugged it off and prepared myself for the potential hell that the checkout lines can sometimes be at these places. I looked up while I was waiting to pay and noticed that the men were there, waiting at the end of the scanner aisle, sitting on benches. Again, I thought, not a big deal, and grabbed my bag of goodies and was on my way out. I didn't see anyone as I was walking out of the store, but remember thinking how strange it was how I seemed to keep running into the same people inside such a huge superstore like that. I didn't see anyone as I was walking out of the store, but remember thinking how strange it was how I seemed to keep running into the same people inside a huge superstore like that. Where this story takes a downturn is here. I typically park on the side of the building. There are more parking spaces than in the front, and it's easier to get in and out. So as I exit, I recognize the same group of 3 men who I had seen around the store. Keys in hand, I walk towards my car about 30 feet away. When I'm about 5 feet from my car, I hear loud steps coming up behind me. At this point, I'm thinking, maybe they're just going to the car next to mine? Unfortunately, that was not the case. I get in and lock my doors out of habit, just as the 3 men surround my vehicle, asking me, "Where you going, sweetheart? We just want to talk." One is trying to open my front passenger side door. The others are standing next to my back driver's side door and behind my car. At this point, my heart is racing, and without giving a second thought, I put my car in reverse and sped out of that parking space like a bat out of hell. As I was putting my car from reverse to drive, they had one more opportunity to say something to me. "We're here all the time. See you soon, sweetheart." Luckily, I was able to get out of that parking lot and get home, albeit a little shaken. Hey, creepy dudes at Superstore, hope we never meet again. This happened when I was 4 or 5 years old. I was at a rather large toy store with my dad and sister, who was 2 years older than me, so that I could pick out a birthday present for a friend of mine. My dad and I were looking at the Legos that they had available, while my sister was shuffling around, bored out of her mind. At some point, she wandered away. I was looking at the box of a castle set, wishing that it was my birthday coming up, when my sister returned and tugged on my dad's arm. "What is it, sweetheart?" he asked without looking away from the box he was holding. I think he also wished it was his birthday coming up. "There's a man, never mind, he's gone now." My dad looked at her, putting the box back on the shelf. "What man?" he asked. "There was a man who asked if I wanted to see his puppy, and I said that I would have to ask you first, but I don't know where he went." My dad took the box out of my hands and put it back on the shelf, then took my hand in his and put his other hand around my sister's shoulders. "Well, let's go find him," my dad exclaimed and began leading us toward the checkouts. Now, like I said, this toy store was rather large, and we were walking very fast. When we got near the checkouts, my sister pointed out a man who was just about to leave the store and said, "That's him!" I could see how she recognized him from behind, as he had very long hair. It went halfway down his back. I remember him having a black winter coat on, which was strange because it was a pretty warm day. We walked even faster until we were at the nearest checkout, and my dad said to us, "Stay here with this nice lady for a sec," referring to the cashier. He then ran up behind the man, who was now almost out the door, and threw his hand on his shoulder, so hard I could hear it. My dad spun him around to face him, then began yelling, "Where's the puppy? Where's this puppy you wanted to show my daughter?" People around started looking over at the commotion, and my dad continued, "You wanted to take my daughter to see your puppy. Where is it? I want to see the puppy too." The man was stammering and stuttering and trying to get away, but my dad had a firm grasp on the guy's shoulder. Turning his head to where we were standing, My dad yelled to my sister, "Is this the guy who asked you to come see his puppy?" My sister silently nodded her head, then looked at her shoes. I think she thought she was in trouble. I didn't blame her. Our dad was yelling really loudly. "Is the puppy in your car? Where is your car? Is it over there?" He pointed out to the glass door into the parking lot. "Or is that your car? Is that where the puppy is so you could show it to my 6-year-old daughter?" I remember thinking that if he had just let go of the guy, he could lead us to the puppy. Before I knew it, 3 men in yellow jackets had come. There was a word on their jackets, which I couldn't read, though I knew all of the letters. Security. My dad let go of the man, and the yellow fellows held him instead. My sister was crying by this point. My dad walked back to us, once again taking my hand in one of his own and putting the other around my sister's shoulders. He asked the cashier if she had a phone he could use, and she took us to the office. He called our mom to pick us up, then assured my sister that she was not in trouble. In fact, she was in the least amount of trouble anyone has ever been in the history of the world, simply by coming and asking for his permission to see the puppy. I asked him if we were still going to see it, and he just looked at me and said, "Sorry, son, the puppy ran away." Our mom came in just a few minutes, and as we were leaving there were police cars pulling up. "Are they going to help find the puppy?" my sister asked my mom. She said, "No, they're here for something else." The other day, after reading through a lot of the stories here, I remembered this incident and asked my dad about it. Apparently, when the cops searched his car, they found rope, duct tape, a knife, pliers, and a hacksaw. At the guy's apartment, they found a whole shitload of child porn. My dad and sister testified at his trial, and the guy got 20 years, which means, barring other circumstances, he's out now. This happened earlier this year on the last day of August. I had just come back from spending the summer at my home and was gearing up for another year of school. My girlfriend and I drove back from the airport and were coming into the student complex where we lived. Standing outside smoking is this man, Toby. Neither of us liked Toby very much. He had been living in the downstairs apartments last year and had been really creepy to one of our flatmates, Sarah. So creepy that he had been banned from the upper floors. So we mostly ignore him. Toby, however, never lets a chance to socialize pass him by, so he says hello and tells us that we can't get inside. This is because the doorknob is missing. Weird, but the building was only renovated into a student complex the year before, and it was kind of trashy, so we didn't think anything of it. I put the doorknob back on, as Toby wanders down to the end of the walkway to yell obscenities down the street. That's a little worrying because even though Toby is kind of creepy, he's not violent or overly aggressive. We slip inside, think he must be drunk, and settle in to go to bed since my plane got in late and it's around midnight. Sleep, it turns out, was impossible. Toby, in a rage outside, is yelling and carrying on. He comes in and out of the house banging on doors and stomping around. Now, most people moved out at the end of the year and we're not even sure if Toby lives here anymore. We decide it's fine. He'll tire himself out, he's not hurting anyone. Just ignore it. About an hour and a half later, Toby is still at it, but now he's outside our window. We're on the side of the building that is next to the other building, and next door they're turning that building into more student complexes. Toby is banging on the chain link fence, swearing about his house right outside our window. At this point, both my girlfriend and I are concerned for our safety. The yelling and banging are incredibly violent and show absolutely no signs of abating. So we go out and lock the doors and call the police. The police take a while to arrive, but Toby is disturbing the peace, so they have a talk with him, tell him to quiet down and go to bed. They come and talk with my girlfriend who called them, and they leave, telling us to call back if things keep up or get worse. This is the end of it, we think. For around 15 minutes anyways, everything is quiet. Then Toby discovers we've locked the doors. He's not happy about that. The yells of obscenities laced with, "This is my house, get louder and louder. He goes back to beating up the chain link fence, and yelling down the street at drunks coming out from bars, but mostly he's outside our window. Then there's a brief silence followed by the sound of shattered glass. Toby threw a rock and broke one of the windows in the room next to ours. If he had been one window over, it would have gone straight into our room. We called the police again, now very scared for our personal safety. Luckily for us, however, Toby stopped throwing rocks at windows after that, possibly because the windows are about a story off the ground. The yelling and banging at the chain link fence and the front and back doors didn't stop though, not until the police came and took him away. We saw him a few days later, after we learned that he in fact did not live in the apartment anymore, sitting on the grass by the driveway on the phone. He gave us the worst look when we got out of the car. Luckily, I haven't seen him since, and I'll be happy if I never run into Toby again. The government is pressing charges, but who knows how that will end. First, some background. I am a hockey player, and I go skating on Friday nights for fun. I am 5'5", 16, female, and not very intimidating to those taller than me. To begin, it was another Friday night. I get home, get ready, and then head out to the bus stop. Upon arriving, I noticed the crowd at the arena was a lot larger than usual. Amongst the crowd, I see a tall guy, I'd say around 23, holding a pair of hockey skates. He seemed to be flirting with 3 girls in the line. I didn't take much more interest and proceeded to pay for my sessions and join the line. Heading in, I instantly go to the lockers and begin putting my things inside. He walks past me and sits down on a bench a couple of centimeters away. He's talking to a couple of friends of his and I begin eavesdropping. He was telling them how all fit they were and how he would love to get a shot at one of them. I looked at him and glared. He laughed and said, "What?" in the most childish voice you could imagine. About a half hour later, everyone's on the ice, skating, dancing. Everyone seems to be having a great time. Until I feel a hand on my shoulder. It was my friend, Rachel. She looked horrified. She went on to tell me that he'd been touching her butt and tried taking her glasses off and kept telling her to, "Come here, baby." I was furious that he thought that was acceptable. Rachel told me she'd be fine and we carried on skating round in the clockwise system they had. Fast forward to the second session. By now, all my friends had arrived. Everyone's blood was pumping and it was beginning to be the best night ever. But you guessed it, Big Boy is chasing after my friends again, and I wasn't having it. I speeded up and met his pace. He looked down to me and smiled. I glared and told him he was out of order. He laughed and told me to shut up. I screamed and told him he was disgusting and that he was pathetic. He skated off and I couldn't follow as I had tired myself out shouting. My other friends came over and they got me to explain what happened. They had been watching off the ice at the side and skated on as soon as he had left. They're all between 5'10" and 6'4", so I felt safe. They skated around with us for a while and I practically forgot the whole thing. After we were done with skating, my 2 friends and I were walking back to Alice's house. We were giggling and talking about some of the lads that were there as teenage girls do. But Kira noticed something. Every corner we turned or changed in pace, a guy behind us copied. Further investigation of the stranger showed it was the guy from before. I kept cool and said he was a harmless creep and that we should keep walking. Alice got worried as we were close by her house, and she didn't want him to know where she lived. We took a left back into town. He followed. We took an alley that led back to the path which led to her house. He followed. Then we ran, Alice ahead with her keys, me in the middle and Kira behind panicking. He didn't realize we ran until he was too far behind to catch up. We got to Alice's and we calmed down, ordered some pizza, and talked about it. I'd never seen him there before. I'd never been so afraid to be on the ice. I'd hate to think what would have happened if we hadn't have ran, or whether he'll be there again. So creepy ice skater, let's not meet again. So I just got a new job back in October, working tech support on the graveyard shift. I work from 1 a.m. to 12 p.m. Friday through Mondays. Needless to say, adjusting my sleep schedule has been quite the task, but I have managed. On the days that I don't work, I still follow my work schedule, and staying up until at least 2 p.m. before falling asleep as to keep my sleep schedule in line with my work schedule. I bought blackout curtains to help with this, as trying to sleep with the sun shining is not easy for me. I usually require complete darkness. I live alone and I started noticing weird things happening around my apartment when I get home from work or after waking up on my days off. Just little things at first. Lights being on that I swear I turned off, doors being left open or closed. Just so everyone can get a bit of an understanding about my apartment, I live on the second floor, and my building is right behind the leasing office. The entrance to my apartment requires to enter the building first, then there's a hallway with 2 apartments on either side. Then you can enter the apartment. Each apartment has 2 deadbolts, one that you can unlock from the outside and another that requires you to unlock from the inside. There is also a balcony which faces east, complete with a large sliding glass door and screen. I use it quite frequently, as I had potted plants out there, but have brought them inside due to the cold weather. My apartment is the one closest to the camera. I intentionally left out the number for obvious reasons. I also have 2 cats, Luna and Eclipse, who, until recently, lived with me. I am moving soon and can't afford the pet deposit, so my parents offered to let them stay at their place for the time being. Eclipse is Luna's daughter and only 6 months old, so she follows her mom around all the time. I'd usually find them cuddled up together on my chair or bed, and recently they trapped themselves in the bathroom. Now that they're not here, it had gotten harder to pass off these weird occurrences as my cats. Doors are still being left open and closed, and food has been disappearing from my fridge. At first I passed this off as just me being my usual self, and just not remembering that I ate something when I was half asleep or bored. Recently, my boss gave me permission to work from home, as the shift is brand new, as the company is moving to 24/7 support, and the building owner refuses to heat my floor for my shift for only 2 people. So, I've been doing that for the past couple weeks, and last week, I noticed the metal rod that acts as a secondary lock on the balcony door wasn't engaged, so I put it back. I didn't think much of it at the time, as my computer faces my balcony door and I sometimes fidget with it with my feet while playing video games. On the 11th of December, my credit card information was stolen and my account was charged $3,000. I was in the office that day as a favor to my coworker, who was really creeped out being in the office alone in the middle of the night. The charge was made at 11:40 a.m., just a few moments before I had gotten off of work, and I had the card on me still. I was restless and didn't sleep well. I wake up at midnight, per usual on Monday morning, and get my setup ready to take calls. Now, almost no calls come in on the weekends, so I'm usually screwing around on Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, and Netflix. Around 3 a.m. I was catching up on the 100 when someone unlocked my fucking door. I don't mean pick the lock, I mean used a key. Thank God the secondary deadbolt was engaged, but the person jiggled the door to try and get it to open. I ran and grabbed my gun and looked out the peephole, but saw nothing. I opened the door with the intent to shoot someone, but the person was already gone. Before you ask, yes, I called the cops. No, they didn't find anything. There are no cameras in the hallways of the building, or outside them for that matter, and they told me that there wasn't enough evidence for them to do anything about it, and left. I didn't sleep at all the next night, and decided to stay home on my days off to try and catch the person if they tried to come back. I also asked the leasing office if they handed out any extra keys to my apartment, and they said no, and informed them that I changed the locks on my door. You remember the picture from before, showing my apartment door? Well, the white door, just on the other side of the fire extinguisher, is my storage closet, opened with the same key for the deadbolt. I keep my Christmas tree and decorations in there and decided it was time to set it up. As I am pulling out the tree this evening, it's only a 5-foot tall fake tree that has all the lights attached to it already. I notice a bag back behind it, a small black duffel bag. In it, I found a change of clothes, sunglasses, shoes, toiletries, and a notebook. What was in the notebook horrified me. There were notes about me, what hours, days I worked, notes about my cats, and updated notes that were no longer there, and the date. My fucking credit card number. As I went further and further back in the notes, I found 2 words circled multiple times. Balcony door, which I assume is how the person entered my apartment for the first time. This creep had been living in my apartment while I've been at work for the past month, and I didn't even know it. The worst part? I was in my apartment at the same time as this guy at some point and didn't even know it. That's the only way he would have gotten my credit card number and my house key to make a copy somewhere. I've called the police and they're on their way over. I'm writing this as I'm waiting for them to show up. It's the only thing that's keeping me sane right now. Plus, I think it will help me organize my thoughts so I can best explain to the officers what has happened. I'll keep you guys updated as things progress. So, I guess I should have noted I used to have a roommate. He joined the Navy a few months back. The cops think the bag is his and was the one who tried to come in. Only problem with that is he's in Florida going through basic training. So unless he lied about that in an attempt to not have to pay rent anymore, I doubt that is the case. They said they'll look into it and add it to my already open investigation on my credit card case. Sorry everyone, I've been working this evening and not able to get to all your questions, but I will try. Yes, I did take pictures of the bag and the contents inside. Everything in the bag, notebook, inside notebook. I took the photos after making the post initially while waiting for the cops to show up, just for my own records, since I'm a paranoid fuck. I blacked out my apartment number and the credit card number for obvious reasons. So, the police got back to me. They confirmed that it wasn't my roommate. They contacted his recruiter and he has confirmed he's still at basic training. They also looked at the footage from the leasing office and nothing was found of anyone fleeing on foot. So we assume he went out back and fled towards the light rail station next to my complex. They're gonna get a hold of the CDOT to pull the security footage from there. The only other thing they said was, "We'll inform you if we find anything else." I also apologize for not being 100% on where boot camp for the Navy is, hence why there was a question mark afterwards. Thank you to those who corrected me. It's always nice to have correct information. The police have identified the person who used my credit card information. They're going to try and see if there is any connection between the person who used my information and the person who left the bag behind. So I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody got what they wanted for Christmas. Now, I usually start off every video with, join the Nightmare Army, but I kind of wanted to start or end this year off, I should say, with a little bit of a different powwow with you guys. Looking back at 2016, I'm not going to lie, I mean, some people say it's the worst year ever, but for me, it's the best year ever, and, it's really hard to put into words how grateful I am for you guys and how this year alone has just really, it's been crazy for me. In all honesty, this is the first time I've actually, I had an idea, I went for it, and it worked. And I have you guys to thank for that, I really do. I got a whole load of Christmas presents upstairs, all wrapped up and whatnot. My family takes Christmas very seriously. It's like, I think equally the whole household's favorite time of the year. And, honestly, if there's one great Christmas present that I do have, it's you guys. And in all honesty, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for sticking around this year. And I hope in 2017 to 2018 to whenever that I'm here for you guys, and hopefully I can still entertain you guys until then. And hopefully you guys will never get tired of me, because honestly I haven't gotten tired of YouTube and I haven't gotten tired of my Nightmare Army. So I love all you guys. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. And just remember, The best ideas always come out of nightmares.